to say it here, I'm going to say it now, I'm going to say it loud, and I'm going to say it proud. I love Spider-Man 2, don't get me wrong, but nothing tops the first movie for me. Nothing tops this movie for me. I know I'm going to get a lot of slack, and don't get me wrong, I love the sequel, but nothing beats the first film in my opinion. Hey there guys, welcome back to another awesome video. Today's movie review is going to be of Spider-Man. I feel like this needs no introduction. I mean, come on. We know who Spider-Man is. We know this movie almost by heart, it feels like. So let's just kind of go into details right off the gate, and just also note that this came out in 2002, so literally a year after I was born. And here's the interesting thing with Spider-Man, well, at least the Sam Raimi trilogy, I should say, is that I was around the time these movies were made. Like, I remember seeing the promos and the commercials for these things, the toys, and McDonald's, Burger King, all the like merchandise and product placement, all that other stuff with tie-ins to Spider-Man. But I never really saw this franchise, or at least this trilogy, until I got older. It was like around 2000, I want to say 14 or 2013 was when I actually watched them for the first time, because a little weird thing, which I know probably not a lot of parents did this and not a lot of kids did this, but growing up for me, my folks were very much like, no PG-13 films until I was like at the age of 12 or 13, even though technically my dad had other plans and other ideas, but that's something that my mom never will know, and that doesn't matter now, but still. But I never really saw Spider-Man because it was in that PG-13 category, and I remember one time catching it on my TV, like the quick glimpse moment of Green Goblin doing the "Hello, my dear," and then all of a sudden my mom or my dad comes in. I had to switch off the channel just in case I wouldn't get caught. I know that has no point and that has no bearing to the review, but I just feel like adding that in because I don't know what else to add to this movie other than the fact that this is just so awesome. This is just so phenomenal. This is just so great. And let's just talk about how great this movie is. And especially for 2002, because this was the era of when like comic book movies weren't like really talked a lot and really weren't that big of a deal. Yes, there was 1989's Batman, and yes, there was 1974 or 1978's Superman and things like that. But Marvel was really having a rough start in the early 90s with trying to get films going. There was that just shit fest of a Fantastic Four film that was in the 90s. Originally, James Cameron was going to make this Spider-Man movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger as Doc Ock and Leonardo DiCaprio as Spider-Man, but that kind of became a jumbled up mess. Flash forward to a couple years later with this being directed by Sam Raimi. So comic book movies were really just like getting their stride a little bit. I mean, 2000 had X-Men, and then later on 2005 we would have Fantastic Four, and then things like the Hulk and so forth. And obviously this is stuff before the MCU, because everything is all distributed from other areas. Like, of course, Sony had Spider-Man, Fox had X-Men, and so forth, and everything that we know is pretty much history. This movie is directed by Sam Raimi, and you know, I think Sam Raimi really had a fantastic vision with this, with the way this is just directed and written and shot. This just feels like a film. Like, there's a difference of like when you say a flick or a film or a movie or cinema. This feels like a film, if you know what I mean. In terms of Marvel movies, this feels like a film. It's interesting kind of watching this movie or rewatching this with the notion of that we've had the multiverse saga, we have the MCU and all these other things. This feels very like fresh. This feels very much different. This feels like, I hate to say it, but it's not like the movies like they used to. They don't make them like they used to, sort of ordeal. And you know, I will give a lot of credit to a majority of the MCU, but there is something about this film that really took that comic book aesthetic. Like, obviously it knew it was a comic book movie, but it took itself serious. And yes, sometimes comic book movies, you're allowed to make fun of the idea that, hey, we're a little goofy, we're a little silly, we can be a little cheesy, but this one took itself serious. And I think it needed to take itself serious because of the fact that this was going to be, either this was going to do successful, or this would have been no more Spider-Man movies afterwards. But Sam Raimi just really did an excellent job with this, and you know, I think this really makes a lot of sense with the subtle, like, edits and shots that Sam Raimi does that have like that very much like not only that cheesiness and that comic book feel, but also that like that Sam Raimi like horror feel. And just a lot of these things that Sam Raimi does and the way he shoots in this film is definitely different from just, again, from movies now, because there's so many different, like the way the transitions, the stylized edits, all these little like things that just, they just have a lot of charm to them. Yes, there's of course the visual effects that don't really render as well. I think there's a lot of charm and a lot of personality even to the effects of the early 2000s, because I'm like, I really didn't give a shit if the effects were dated. This just has a lot of like that early 2000s feel of like just all these new techniques and all these different like styles of from wide shots to pans to zooms to close-ups. There's just something really sharp about them, but also very like feels very, it just has a distinctness to it. It has a precision to it, and it had a vision to it. I feel like weirdly enough, looking back on this, and I'm not trying to say all this just to give so much praise and be like, hey, I'm a Marvel fan and I'm biased, and I'm a Spider-Man fan and I'm biased. I genuinely do feel, looking back on this now, yeah, this is a very early 2000s thing, and this was of course the early 2000s, but the cast is almost pure perfection. I mean, yes, I know Tobey Maguire has been memed to death, and yes, there's obviously the memes that have spawned from this movie, but Maguire's been memed to death. Just how the fact that he was literally looking like a man-child as a high school student, but he really captured what the essence of Peter Parker was at that time. Just the combed hair, the geeky glasses, and the frailness of him and the awkwardness. He really captured very much of that time. Kristen Dunst as MJ. I think it's Rosemary Harris as Aunt May is just so wholesome, and especially with her and her interactions with Uncle Ben before, of course, Uncle Ben gets killed. Even you have James Franco and Willem Dafoe. They just pull off Harry Osborn and Norman Osborn perfectly. They look like father and son. They have they have, again, that essence of Harry Osborn and Norman Osborn and how their relationship would be. And speaking of Norman Osborn, let's talk about Willem Dafoe, because Willem Dafoe is just so transcendent. He's so phenomenal. He's so awesome. This is literally the reason why Dafoe is my favorite actor, because of the fact that he's a chameleon in this role as Norman Osborn, and of course the iconic Green Goblin. It's no wonder he got to play him and reprise his role in Spider-Man No Way Home, because literally who else could there be? I know I said like, oh, what if there was MCU fan castings and MCU castings of villains like Doc Ock and the Green Goblin, and you know what, that was like a thing that I did back in like 2021, 2022. Looking back on No Way Home, there really isn't anyone else I can think of. I know there's been actors before that would be the Green Goblin if they ever appeared in the MCU, like in that MCU universe, but there's really no one else that could have done it better than Willem Dafoe, because he just really knew how to do that duality so well, that Jekyll and Hyde personality going on. And I just loved how well he just captures the villain, and just the things like that monologue about you and I aren't so different, and the path we choose. And the world just wants to see a hero fail, fall, die trying. No matter what you do, despite of everything you've done for them, they will eventually hate you. I just think that's just really strong, and I feel like writing like that is just really rare to hear nowadays. And yes, I know there's a lot of cheese in this film with like lines like, you don't look as tall, you're a lot taller than you look, I hunch, don't, little cheesy things. Of course, lines and moments like Randy Savage's bone saw is just pure gold. The music, the way the music just builds you up with so much like excitement and so much anticipation. Danny Elfman just, again, knocks it out the park. First Batman, now Spider-Man. He's got two properties on his hands here. I do appreciate the moments when there's no music, when there's just dead silence and it's just the audio, like especially the fight sequences. Like there's three specific ones. Spider-Man and Green Goblin are in the church or in that building in their final confrontation. The fight between Peter and the killer who is supposedly the murderer of Uncle Ben, and just that, again, that moment of Peter and Bonesaw fighting. There's very little music going on in those scenes, but they're just so profound, and just, you don't need any music played in the background. You don't need a soundtrack or a score. It's just the echoes and the whispers and all these other things are just so perfect. And I feel like there's so many things that this movie just really handles so well that it's just so phenomenal. And again, I know this is very cheesy, and there's a lot of cheesy moments in this movie, but I don't care. I don't fucking care. I'm gonna give Spider-Man 1. I'm gonna give it an A+. So Spider-Man 1, have you guys seen it? If you haven't seen it, let me know. And do you like it? Do you hate it? Let me know in the comment section down below. And also let me know in the comment section down below, what is your favorite Spider-Man movie? And as always, guys, thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please smash the like button. If you're new to my channel, please subscribe. It also videos every day, every week. Make sure you ring that bell. The new videos every day, every week. Share the video with your friends. All that good stuff and more. Leave a suggestion in the comment section. You name it, I'll look to do it as best as possible. We got more stuff for March Marvel and Madness. Definitely a lot more reviews, a lot of TV shows, and a lot of movies, and hopefully we get to them very soon. But thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you next time.